Jonette, and this is Grow with Dr. Jonette. Today we are making one of my more decadent recipes, caramel corn cookies. When the weather turns cooler and drier, I start making caramel corn. It's a favorite of the holiday season for family, friends, and just about anybody that tastes it. So I decided to create a caramel corn cookie. It's loosely based upon the Krumble cookies, caramel corn cookies, but I think this cookie is, it's quite a bit smaller. Krumble cookies are huge, and this one's a little smaller and every bit as delicious. In fact, I think it's more delicious. So let's get baking. We're going to start by adding 3 cups of flour. We're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. I just use Morton's sea salt. Some people like to use Himalayan sea salt or different types of sea salt. I find it's easy when I'm cooking and baking to just use the Morton's sea salt. We're going to mix that together, and we're going to go ahead and set that aside because we'll be adding it to our cookies a little bit later. I've added 1 cup of butter to my mixing bowl here, and to that 1 cup of butter I'm adding 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I'm going to go ahead, and I like to use a hand mixer and mix it up. We're creaming them together. And I like to scrape down the sides about halfway through. And once it's all creamed up, we're going to go ahead and add 2 eggs. And I'm going to add instead of vanilla, I like to use a butter vanilla emulsion, especially for my cookies, like my sugar cookies. It adds an extra nice buttery flavor to them. And I'm adding about 1 teaspoon of the buttery emulsion. It's a buttery vanilla emulsion, actually. I'm also adding about 1 teaspoon of caramel emulsion to the cookies as well. You can see an emulsion is quite a bit thicker than your regular flavorings. And we're going to mix that in. What you'll notice is that this may actually curdle a little bit, and that's normal, that's fine. And now we're ready to go ahead and add in our flour. I usually add it all at once and then just mix it in until it's just moistened. Scrape our bowl a bit and mix it a bit more. You can see it's fairly well mixed there, actually. Probably be fine just leaving it like that. I'll just see if I can get some of the dough off of the beaters there. There we go. All right. And it's ready to make into our cookies. Before we make it into our cookies, though, let's talk about our neuronutrition nugget. You may be wondering, what is in cookies that's good for your brain? Well, Our brain needs sugar or carbohydrates, as actually sugar is its primary source of energy. And if it doesn't get enough energy, then it isn't going to function. However, it doesn't need a lot of refined sugars. We can get most of our sugars that we need from natural sources like honey or maple syrup or dates. However, sometimes it's just nice to make a fun and delicious dessert, even though it may not be the healthiest for your body. It's okay, because you can incorporate those things like high fat in the butter, refined, processed sugar, and those types of things into your diet on a limited or very limited basis, and still have a healthy diet. Give your brain some energy and enjoy once in a while a decadent dessert like our caramel corn cookies. I'm using a 1 tablespoon cookie scoop here today. If you go to my website, growwithdrjonette.com, you'll be able to see this whole recipe, as well as go to my shop where you'll be able to find links for things like the cookie scoop, the vanilla emulsion, the baking sheet, the parchment paper, as well as a lot of other things. So check out my shop, and you'll be able to find all the supplies that you need for this recipe. Well, not all the supplies, but most of the supplies. So we're going to go ahead and load up this cookie sheet with these cookies. And once I get the cookie sheet filled, I'm going to go ahead and flatten the cookies just a little bit with my hands, or with the palm of my hand rather. And the reason I do that is because we are going to be piping some delicious cream cheese caramel frosting on top of these cookies. And when they have a nice flat top, it makes it much easier to pipe the frosting. I've got the oven heating for 350 degrees, and we're going to put the the tray of cookies into the freezer for about 10 minutes before we bake the cookies. For my simple and smart tip, if you don't want your cookies to spread quite as much, and go ahead and freeze them for about 10 minutes before baking them, and they won't spread quite as much. The other simple and smart tip that I have for you is we're going to be using in the frosting homemade caramel sauce as well as homemade caramel corn. If you don't have either the caramel sauce or the caramel corn, not a problem, just use purchased. But if you want the recipe to make either the caramel sauce or the caramel corn, of course, go to my website at growwithdrjonette.com and just click on the search bar, type in caramel corn or caramel sauce, and you'll be able to find the recipe. Both of them are actually relatively quick, easy, and simple, as well as much more delicious than purchased. So let's go ahead and flatten these. I just gently press them down with the palm of my hand. You can see they don't stick to my palm, and flatten just a little bit very nicely. And now they're ready to pop into the freezer for 10 minutes while I finish heating up the oven. So our first batch just came out of the oven. I baked this batch about 9 minutes at 350 degrees. The recipe I put 8 to 10 minutes on the recipe for baking them. Depends upon your oven, depends upon some different things. I have a convection oven, so it tends to bake a little bit quicker. But what you want to do is about halfway through, at about the 4-minute mark, 5-minute mark, you want to rotate your cookies so that the front part in the front of the oven goes to the back, etc. And then bake another 4 or 5 minutes. The other thing is you want to just they're done when, number one, they smell. You can really smell that they're done. You can smell them baking, which is delicious. And the other is, you can see they're brown around the edges. I don't want to pick one up yet because they're fresh out of the oven, and you want to let them cool for about 5 minutes before you take them off of your cookie tray. And we're going to take them off of the cookie tray, set them aside, let them cool completely, and then we're going to make some caramel frosting and frost them with some caramel frosting and top them with our caramel corn for a delicious caramel corn cookie. Our cookies are baked and it's time to make the caramel frosting for them. For the caramel frosting, we're going to have 4 ounces of cream cheese, full fat cream cheese, 4 tablespoons of butter, 1 3/4 cups of brown sugar. I'm actually going to cream up the sugar and the cream cheese before the butter and the cream cheese before I add the sugar. If I didn't mention it, you want to have your butter as well as your cream cheese at room temperature before you make your frosting. Also your eggs and your butter at room temperature before you make the cookies. So I'm adding the sugar, and I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons here of caramel sauce. You can see that's a fairly thick frosting for that cookie. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more caramel sauce. Makes it a little easier to pipe. That looks better. And we're going to fill our piping bag. I'm using a Wilton 2A tip for the piping the frosting on the cookie. Let's get a little more there. This makes just about the right amount of frosting for all of these cookies. I think there's about 45 cookies, maybe 46. The cookies here some of them are lighter than others, and that's actually by design. One of my daughters likes her cookies not so soft. She said last time I made them they were too soft and cakey, so this time we're making them a little bit browner. We'll see how she likes them. I like them either ways. Farmer Fred tends to like a firmer cookie. And we're just going to pipe it in a circle around the cookie like that. Our cookies are frosted, and we're going to go ahead and put some caramel corn on top of them. I just take a piece of caramel corn and set it on top of each one of them. Don't need a lot of caramel corn on them. Just a little bit. Give you a little crunch, extra crunch on top of them. And there you have it, our caramel corn cookies. Thank you for watching. See you next time on Grow with Dr. Jeanette.